Hey guys, I guess we're gonna go live right now. But anyway, it's just gonna be. Let me fix this music. Is always an issue here. I'm having to use my avatar because I had my eye appointment today, and well, just well, it's a long story. But anyway, now I'm not really together because I had to get my eyes dilated. I'm still kind of not real clear on seeing, but that's okay. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. Anyway. Here we are. All right. So today, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Chad Daybell and this garbage that he had Emma put out on the old good old X over here. So without let's just get started on that, okay? I mean, I was a little bit pissed. I was like, why is this being allowed to be put out? Now, you know, he wrote several letters and Emma put them out, and I'm pretty sure that these will continue to be put out by Emma, all right? So, um, we'll just kind of look at it for a minute here. So Chad Daybell's these letters are just as desperate for this natural causes law to be believed, but it will never be believed, right? From the Idaho's death row, Chad Daybell just mailed out a jaw-dropping letter. It's a desperate attempt, a last-ditch effort to rewrite history. And in it, he swears his late wife Tammy Daybell died of natural causes. Bronchitis, bad cough, maybe even the flu, insisting there was nothing sinister about her sudden passing. Here's the problem, Matt, though. It's undeniably an inconvenient truth. The coroner says she was basically strangled. So we're going to line up the medical facts. We're going to talk about the chilling findings, and we're going to talk about these letters that he wrote that we know are nothing but BS. All right? There's no way. So, in section one, the letters. His daughter, Emma Murray, Chad's daughter, posted these handwritten notes, just thrusting it back into the public, their consciousness. It's a document designed to provide, to plant seeds of doubt. I mean, it's just a key passage right here, and we're just going to read them, and then you can judge for yourself. But I guarantee you, this is what he's doing. Once again, as all sociopaths will tell you, it is never their fault. All right? It's never their fault. What's wrong with you? It's never their fault. That's the way it goes. Anyway, so, um, Chad writes, and this is just a little quote. Tammy had been battling a respiratory infection for weeks. She coughed so hard that she vomited. I begged her to see a doctor, but she said the rest would fix itself. Hey, Magic Star, can you hear me okay? Good to see you. I'm on my phone because I'm just not really dressed all the way for my doctor's appointment. So can you hear me okay, Magic? So glad to see you. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. I'm always happy to see you. We need to catch up, girl, when we're not just doing this. I know you've got a lot going on. I just appreciate you so much. I really do. Great. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad I sound fine. So, yes, it's just a little bit about Chad Daybell and his bullshit that he's putting out there. And yes, I'm going to say some cuss words, and it's going to be a little bit ugly, but I'm very upset that he was allowed for these to be just posted out there. Why? Why? I can't stand it. It's just not right. Everybody knows that he did this, that they did this. So anyway, so we're just looking at what he puts out here. So he says that on October the 19th, that she went to bed early, that he found her unresponsive the next morning. It was just natural causes. There was no foul play. He's innocent. That was his quote, right? It's quite the statement, isn't it? It's almost poetic. It's like simplicity, almost convincing if you didn't know the full truth, right? Just that horrifying story. Um, but when you listen to those words, you notice conspicuously what's missing. What's missing? Well, what's missing is his glaring omissions of just jumping out at you. There's absolutely no mention of the autopsy that definitely contracted his claims. Not a peep about the asphyxiation that the forensic experts confirmed. Not one peep, right? It's all about, oh, it was just an accident. She just tried naturally. And it was just going to happen. His family always knew that was just going to happen. You know, he had seen it in his visions. His visions are nothing but fake bullshit, right? He didn't have any visions. It's just some bullcrap dream he was having. Yes, I'm a little bit angry, a little bit spicy right now because of this. It's it's BS, and I feel so bad for her family. But you know what else I feel bad for? I feel bad for her because Emma is over here. Hey, I'm gonna call him and say it like it is. Emma is over here again putting out this garbage that her dad's telling her. She is absolutely brainwashed. When, just when is she going to stand up for her mother? My God. It's like it's like her mother didn't even count, girl. It makes me sick. When are they going to stand up for their mother? Oh my God. You know? So there's no, he just never mentions the autopsy, and there's no acknowledgement of the fact that he refused the original autopsy. He just rushed to bury her because he wanted that $430,000. It was just, with just grotesque efficiency. He just collected that money, that life insurance, just 2 weeks later. Does he have selective memory? I'm not sure, I mean, a narrative cure is this narrative is just so curated, it excludes anything that might challenge his version of the events. He paints a picture of devoted husband, concerned for his ailing wife. But that canvas has some very, very large dark holes, doesn't it? Right. Of course, it's visions. It's premeditated murder. Thank you. And yes, I'm not monetized. I'm going to say these words. Maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to. And then there's this. Listen to this little bookshelf thing that's on here, and this is like part of these. This is part of these letters. I found this out here on. I don't know if it was scribed or one of these, but it talks about the bookshelf. When I attended Springville Junior High in the early 1980s, I enrolled in a woodshop class. This is Chad talking, right? The instructor said we could build anything we wanted, so I decided to make a bookshelf. I designed it myself, and it was about 5 feet high with several shelves. I was pleased with how it turned out, and over the past 4 decades, that sturdy bookshelf has become our family's most enduring piece of furniture. Okay, all right. One of the most important books I've ever read is Life Everlasting by Dune S. Crowther. It was one of the first books placed on my new bookshelf after I discovered the book as a teenager. The book examines the eyewitness accounts of more than 200 individuals who have ventured into the spirit world and returned to tell their experiences. It is LDS themed, but the truths it contains apply to everyone. I will be sharing quotes from it in many of the upcoming letters. He's telling us he is planning on putting out more garbage, right? With quotes and things from these books, right? If you've listened to me read part of his books or somebody else read his books, you realize he's not a very good writer. It's very all over the place. It's very, uh, it's pretty bad. It's just pretty bad. So, if you have any interest in where we came from before birth, why we are here on earth, and where we go after death, Life Everlasting provides those answers. The book was first published in the 1960s, but Dwayne re-released an excellent updated version in 2008 with 5 additional chapters. I would recommend that version. Of course you would, Chad Daybell. Of course you would. Now listen to these musical notes. Again, this also comes from his babbling writing that he's putting out. I love all kinds of music. And in my upcoming letters, again, telling us he's putting out more trash, I will sometimes mention songs that have been, okay, because I will sometimes mention songs that have been the soundtracks to my life. Rather than a disrupting flow of the letters by discussing a song, its importance to me at that point, and I will include these musical notes afterwards to give an added meaning and depth. Oh, I see. He's going to copyright. Right. Copyright. He's telling us he's going to do it ahead of time, just like he stole other people's near death experiences, right? He told us. Oh God, this man, he's just, oh my God. Typical. He's mentally ill. I'm telling y'all, he is mentally ill. I don't know what it is, and I wish he would get help for this because there is no way that he can walk through life like this every day and not see what he has done and know that it is wrong and that, it's not God's way. This is not God's plan. God did not plan for us to take the lives of children and our spouses so that we could creep over there and be with somebody else. you know, it's crazy. It's just crazy, girl. So he goes. He goes, however, during my first 3 years in the Fremont County Jail, I rarely heard music. It was a genuine hardship since my life had been immersed in music before my incarceration. Really? I didn't know his life was it. I didn't know he had anything musical about him. Then, a few months before my court trial began, the jail staff provided a portable radio that I could listen to when I was allowed to in the jail's ball court. The court was a concrete rectangle with 20-foot high walls that usually blocked the sun, but it was nice to breathe some fresh air. There was a giant communications tower directly above the jail that interfered with the radio reception, but it stood in a certain spot in the ball court and held the radio just at a tilted angle. I could hear a few stations. A country station, an oldie station, and a Christian station called K-Love that came into best. So he's telling us that this Christian station, he could hear more of that one when he held it just right, right? As I first listened to the other two stations more often, but as I became more familiar with the Caleb songs and their emphasis on Jesus and uplifting topics, I came to rely on those songs to boost my morale. One song that stood out to me was I'm So Blessed by the group Cain. It has a catchy beat, and the lyrics include the phrases, on my best day, I'm a child of God. On my worst day, I'm a child of God. Those were definitely some of my worst days, but the song helped me to remember that the Lord was with me at all times, especially when the going got tough. So if you're having a hard day, click on the link and hopefully this song will help you too. Oh, God. All right. Then we're going to go into what the autopsy actually says, right? So this is going to be a part of, let me go back over here. I've got to straighten this out so that we can get all of these because it's just so disgusting. Right? Now, okay, I have to accept all for that. All right, now come on, let's go back over here. I could not believe that this was over here on X, right? I mean, so anyway, so let's talk about this other thing. What the autopsy actually says. Let's talk about those holes, specifically the one where child so desperately wants us to ignore. The autopsy. After detectives fueled by mounting suspicions and the disappearance of Lori Ball's children, reopened the case of Tammy's body was exhumed in December of 2019. This was a crucial turning point, a moment when the truth began to claw its way out of the grave. Absolutely. Thank you. It is a moment, right? Oh my goodness. The forensic pathologist's findings were stark, unambiguous, and utterly devastating to Ted's natural causes story. They found potential hemorrhages, those tiny telltale bursts of blood vessels in her eyes. These aren't just random occurrences. They're classic, undeniable signs of strangulation, a violent struggle for breath. The report didn't mince words. It listed the cause of death as asphyxiation by obstruction of the airway, and perhaps more damningly, the manner of death is a homicide. It is absolutely not natural causes, Chad Daybell. Stop it. Just stop it. And it gets even more specific, more brutal. The compression was severe enough to fracture her small hyoid Boing. It's not a boing. The hyoid boing. Why do I keep saying that? Oh my God. Okay. So the hyoid, the bone spur. Now, let's be clear. A coughing fit, no matter how severe, simply cannot do that. A respiratory infection, even a nasty one, doesn't leave behind such specific violent trauma. Chad's letters never even attempt to explain the mountain of evidence. He simply pretends the autopsy doesn't exist, hoping that it ignores, that it will ignore all of that, just, and that we will too. It's his strategy born of desperation, not innocence. It's deliberate attempt to gaslight the public, to make us doubt irrefutable medical science in favor of his self-serving fiction. Absolutely. It is self-serving fiction that we have going on over here. Gosh. And then you want to talk about the next part. Let me see if I can pull this other letter up, guys. Hang on a minute. You can go to letter two. Oh, it's right here. I think I can do it like this. Oh, I can. Let's go look at letter two for a minute, all right? Okay. So in letter two, he talks about, and it's really pathetic, really. This letter is devoted to Tammy. I loved her, and I still do. She was my life partner and the mother of our 5 amazing children. She was your life partner, but you told Lori you had been married in previous lives and that you two belonged together. And all these other people were in the way, right? Yes, Magic Star. Yes. That's exactly, absolutely conclusive of manual strangulation. Thank you. It absolutely is. I, it's shocking. See, I don't know if Daybell thinks that he can sit over there in that prison and just keep just manifesting all this stuff in his mind, and that any of us are going to believe it. I mean, does he think we're all stupid? Does he think we all don't know? Uh, oh my God, it is unbelievable. But I'll tell you something. The one thing I do know from reading these books about these, psychopaths, sociopaths, these type of things, it is never their fault. It is always somebody else's fault. See, it is Tammy's fault that happened to her because she wouldn't go see a doctor. That's what he's claiming is the problem here. She wouldn't go see a doctor. Oh God, I will never understand Lori. Lori Daybell, you had a great life. What the hell happened to you? How did you end up in the bed and in the arms with this freak? Really? How? I'd like to know. I mean, it's nothing more than a cult. Absolutely a cult. And I don't know if you were in here the other day, and I'm going to get back on his story probably tomorrow, but I wanted to talk about this today. But Mr. Aubrey Trail over there and his cult, absolutely another cult. But what's weird about it is in that particular trial, it talks about vampires in the covenant of witches. Okay. So Tad's over here with his covenant of, holy women, I guess. But but he is the leader, right? Because he is the brother of Jesus. He is a, he's, he calls himself a, oh my, what was he call himself? The brother of Jesus, Saint James. I think it is. I think it was Saint James. I have my thumbnail says this, but anyway, it's just crazy stuff. And I just wonder if he and Lori had absolutely went and investigated the Aubrey that trial first before they come up with all this stuff. But anyway, so let's go back over here. And so he talks about that's his life partner, the mother of his children, and what a wonderful family they had. They were married for nearly 30 years, and I always thought to keep her safe and protected. She was the anchor of my life, and I never considered harming her. Is that right? Absolutely, is that right? And then he starts going on about Tammy increasingly had severe health issues in the final months of her life, but very few people knew about them. She was an intensely private person who rarely shared personal details with others, much less that her health was suffering. She would put on a brave smile in public and act as if nothing was bothering her at all. But even those of us who knew about her health struggles never expected her to pass away so suddenly, and her death was somewhat overshadowed the remarkable woman she was. Now, listen to me. No, no, no. You told everybody, oh, she's not going to be here much longer. She's going to be passing away. And what did Lori do? What did Lori do? How much longer do I have to wait? When do I get to have my life? How much longer do I have to wait for her to pass away? Right. Okay. Right. So, anyway, then there is section 3, the speedy remarriage. Okay, I'm not going to read all of number 3, but I will read. Okay, but I will read the bookshelf part. Now, here's the weird thing. He's writing these letters, and then he's writing the bookshelf. He's telling you what you need to read so you can live the life he has led, I guess, or the life that he is leading as he works his way into heaven to lead the 144,000. Right? Well, okay, one of my duties as the editor in chief of Spring Creek Book Company was to sort through the many manuscript submissions that we would receive. On the company website Tammy had designed, she had created a section on how authors should format their manuscripts and the types of topics our company was looking for. Our success grew. We were receiving dozens of manuscripts each month. There were a lot of aspiring authors out there. However, we only had a few openings each year, since many of our authors were writing additional books. But I still looked at each submission just to make sure we weren't missing a diamond waiting to be discovered. I would take the most promising ones home for Tammy to read. This team effort worked well in maintaining a high level of quality in our books. It was hard to send a rejection letter to those authors we didn't select, but I tried to recommend other publishers who might be a better fit for their books. One day, I opened a manila envelope and pulled out a manuscript that immediately caught my eye. It told the story of Willard and Rebecca Bean. I don't think I've heard this one yet. Maybe you have. Who were asked by LDS Church President Joseph S. Smith in the early 1900s to serve a mission in Palomar, New York, the birthplace of Mormonism. The problem the Beans faced was that the church members had left Palomar many years before, and the townspeople certainly didn't want them to return. But the Beans moved to Palmyra, endured initial persecution, and slowly began mending the fences, just literally and figuratively. Over time, they helped turn the negative feelings of there. I'm sorry. Over time, they helped turn around the negative feelings there, purchased historic locations for the church, and finally concluded their mission more than 2 decades later. The manuscript written by Rachel Packer was one of the most powerful and inspirational. I couldn't put it down. It was one of those rare moments as a publisher when you feel, whoa, this is great. I need to sign this book immediately. The book titles A Lion and a Lamb, referencing Willard as the bold, sometimes brash lion, with Rebecca as the wise, sweet lamb, who just won over the townspeople with her kindness. I took the manuscript home for Tammy to read, and she was just enthusiastic about it. We both knew it would be a bestseller, and I contacted Rachel the next day. And when we met, there was an instant connection, like meeting a dear friend. We signed a publishing contract and put the book into production. The initial sales were strong, but then it just kept selling year after year, especially in the LDS bookstores in Palmyra itself. Word of mouth was strong, and rightly so, because it was genuinely great story of faith and preservation. I'm sorry, perseverance. I'm sorry. During this time frame, the accomplished LDS filmmaker T.C. Christensen had revealed several successfully high-quality movies and was interested in producing one based on A Lion and a Lamb. This film's title would be The Fighting Preacher. After Willard Beans' tendency to use his fist as well as his tongue to preach the good word. I'm okay. My eyes are still dilated, so I'm just struggling a little bit, but it's gonna be okay. We're gonna make it through this. During this time, the accomplished, okay, so I already read that. A film deal was reached in July of 2019, and the movie had its world premiere in Salt Lake City. Tammy and I were invited as guests to the first screening, and we were very pleased with this film. It has all the elements of drama, humor, heartfelt emotion, and the trademark of all TC films. The Fighting Preacher had a long run in the theaters, a rarity for LDS films, and now available on streaming services. After the movie's premiere, Tammy and I were invited to meet TC and the film's actors, and then Reed, he goes, and the film's actors, Reed was there, and we shook the hands and smiled at each other as if to say, can you believe with this little manuscript has led us, where this little manuscript has led us? We felt humbled, and we played the role, just bringing in the Bean story to the world. Okay, and then he goes musical notes. So each one of these letters is going to have this bookshelf musical note. Okay. Despite my love of music, I don't play any instruments, and my singing skills are barely adequate. I took piano lessons for about a year when I was 8 years old, but I was much more interested in learning to play baseball, and my blossoming musical career just came to an end. Meanwhile, Tammy had a natural talent for playing instrument. She first learned to play the clarinet, and then she switched to the drums, and then she was part of the Springfield High School's marching band. When our children began taking piano lessons, Tammy joined in and took lessons at the same time. Thankfully, Tammy's musical ability has been passed down to our children, who all followed in her footsteps of learning to play the clarinet. As the 5 kids worked their way through Springfield Junior High, Tammy and I enjoyed a decades worth of seasonal band performances. Toward the end, we knew these songs pretty well. We were grateful to Mr. Booth, the band instructor, for the positive influence that he had over the children. Some of our children have been branched out onto the, okay, some of our children have branched out onto the synthesizer, guitar, and singing. They have produced some wonderful songs. In our family, we all have different musical talents. But one musical group we are united with on this British, oh boy, okay, but one musical group we are united on is the British group Keen. I think it's Keen, it's Keane, with Tom Chaplin on vocals, Tim Rice Oxley on keyboard, and Richard Hughes on drums, and Jessica Quinn on the guitar. Their songs are they just clicked for us. Tammy and I attended the band's first Salt Lake City concert and loved it. And from then on, King concerts in Utah became an event for the whole family. After we moved to Idaho, we still traveled back to Springfield regularly. Keene was an essential part of our road trip. I believe Keene is currently on a hiatus, but our family will always be big fans. One of Tammy's favorite teen songs is Spiraling, which she loved to sing and dance along with Enjoy. Okay, so he puts this out here. She puts the name of the song out here. Now let me tell you something. I thought, based on what I remember, that he only enjoyed his new wife's dancing around in her little studio, and then she would record this and send it to him. I have a question, and I've always wondered about this. Did her husband know that she was filming herself dancing around like this and sending it to Chad Daybell? I've always wondered about that, right? I mean, if that was my spouse and I knew or I found out that that person was dancing around, recording it and sending it to some man or woman, I think I would be highly upset, right? That why? What was the whole point of it? I don't get it, right? All right. So here we go. So Chess, okay, so anyway, we're going to move on to number 3, and we're talking about the speedy remarriage, right? 17 days. Think about that number. 17 days after Tammy Daybell died, under suspicious circumstances, Chad married Lori Vallow in a beachside Hawaii ceremony. It's a timeline that screams planning, premeditation, and a shocking lack of grief. Prosecutors, quite rightly, they just argued that the swift remarriage wasn't a coincidence. There's never a coincidence in true crime. Never. Get that straight. Never is there. It was a clear indicator of a meticulously orchestrated scheme. Absolutely, it was. Tad's letter, however, attempts to frame this whirlwind romance in a completely different light. He calls it God's will. He just writes again. I quote him directly. This is directly out of those letters. Okay. Uh, After Tammy passed, Lori and I felt an urgent spiral. All right, hang on. After Tammy passed, Lori and I felt an urgent spiritual prompting to unite our families before the apocalypse. See, everything he does is about the end of the world, okay? It's all about the apocalypse, the end of the world, the 144,000, how he is so chosen, right? He and Lori are the chosen ones. The rest of you all are peons and you don't matter, right? Only they can decide who is right, who is wrong, who is dark, and who is light. Okay. Oh my goodness, my goodness. He's leaning heavily into his apocalyptic doomsday cult, isn't he? Trying to cloak a deeply suspicious act in the guise of divine guidance. But many of the jurors, and frankly, to any reasonable person, that sounded less like a spiritual calling and more like a very tight deadline. That's right, because she gave him an ultimatum. Absolutely. Either stay with your family or get this done, right? That's exactly what she said. So let's go on to, oh my goodness. This just wasn't about finding a new partner. It was about solidifying a new life, a new financial arrangement. He never had money. He didn't know how to live with money, but he wanted it, right? In fact, I believe I heard, now I'm gonna have to go back and find it, where he told somebody, well, she has a lot of money. He did not understand that that money was not hers. That money was actually Charles Vallow's money, right? Charles Vallow made that money. Charles Vallow supported that family, not Lori. Okay, so let's move over here. So it wasn't just about finding a new partner, it was about solidifying a new life, a new financial arrangement, and a new narrative. The speed of it all, the immediate shift from grieving husband to newlywed, it just raised red flags that Chad's spiritual prompting couldn't possibly cover that up. It suggested a cold, calculating individual, not a man acting on genuine, heartfelt religious conviction. The optics were terrible, and the reality, as the trial revealed, was even worse. Okay, let's go back over here, and we're going to go to letter number 3. Oh my God. Let's take a look at this one. Oh, and he just goes on about his previous letter and how Tammy and he and the children had moved from Utah to Idaho in 2015, and you know how, they lived in North Rexburg, and the children were going to BYU or the high school over there, and that they'd made wonderful friends, and that Tammy just flourished in her new surroundings, and that she loved the rural life with plenty of property for her own creative little farm, right? She had always had a soft spot in her heart for animals, but in Springfield, we'd had a small yard that limited the type of pets we could have. However, Now think about this for a minute. But yet they had a pet cemetery, by God, where you put animals and you put children. That's right. Everybody goes to the pet cemetery, right? Wow. Okay. But they just didn't have any animals. They were all in the pet cemetery, I guess. After moving to Idaho, Tammy stayed busy just running her publishing company. I was the president and the editor in chief, while she was the vice president and the chief financial officer. I was also making good money writing in a weekly online column, along with receiving royalties on my published books. We felt so blessed. Have you seen their tax records? Because they were not making a whole lot of money. No, they were not. And I had found, not that it matters, because it doesn't matter. This happens to a lot of people. I understand this. Everybody goes through hard times. But I also found records of bankruptcy over there on Pacer. Anyway, we're going to move along from there. So, yes, they did struggle just like everybody else, right? All right. However, soon after they arrived, okay, so they had their little family of pets. They had pigeons, cats, rabbits, and of course, Tammy's favorite pet was an Indian runner duck. She named them all and enjoyed caring for them. She also created several garden areas around the property. All right. So then he talks about what their duties were at the publishing company and that he was writing for something else, and they felt so blessed. So Tammy didn't need to work beyond her company duties, but several years earlier in Springfield, she had taken a part-time position at the computer lab, just teaching her children in elementary school. She loved working with the students, and the job was very rewarding to her. So when they were prepared to move to Idaho, Tammy looked for a similar position, and she was hired as the assistant librarian at Madison Middle School in Rexburg. She was also later hired as the librarian at the Central Elementary in Sugar City, which is a much closer job to her home. She also took on the task of creating a computer lab at the school, just modeled after the one she had in Springfield, and that she would visit Tammy. He would visit Tammy at the elementary school every couple of weeks, and that he helped her, during the open house events and back to school events. It was fun, and he talks about how he greeted the students as Mrs. Daybell and husband. So it goes, Tammy always strived, this is sad. Tammy always strived to be physically fit, and in Idaho, she turned a part of our front room into her workout area. She enjoyed doing yoga, and she liked to play several exercise video games such as Dance, Walk It Out, and Extra Beat. It wasn't until the final year of her life that she started having noticeable physical setbacks. She caught a cold during the holidays, and she battled a chest congestion and deep cough throughout 2019. She was also experiencing menopause symptoms with regular hot flashes. That does not make you pass away, dude. It does not. Stop it. Shut up and sit down, Chad Daybell. Shut up. Oh my God. What a hateful asshole. Sorry, but he is. Okay. Oh my God. My children, my children and I encouraged Tammy to visit her doctor for full health exam, but she resisted. She had grown up with a firm belief in using holistic medicines and natural healing remedies for her health. And I have seen these methods produce many positive effects over the years, with Tammy having rapid recoveries. But this time seemed different, as if something had shifted with her in her body. Hello, dude. I'm sure that she knew that you were up to something, and I feel like I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be. I don't know her. But it would seem to me that a woman would notice when her man was out there being a cat and just playing around. I'm sure she lived with some depression. Absolutely. Think about that, people. Think about that for a moment. Would you not be depressed if you found your husband going behind your back doing all these things, right? I know she knew something wasn't right. You just know these things, right? You just know these things. So anyway, he goes, first, there was Tammy's lengthy colds and prolonged coughing fits, and second, were her lethargy and overall lack of energy. She wasn't having lack of energy. She was over there training for a marathon. Damn, dude. Do you think we're all stupid? Oh, the third reason for concern was her swollen joints and bloating in her abdomen. Tammy initially tried to brush these symptoms off as temporary water retention, but they never went away. One day she came up to me and partially lifted her shirt, and she grabbed a hold of her belly and said, "Look at this. I can almost hear my guts just sloshing around." Okay, Chad, so what? No, you don't die from that. Stop it. No. And she finally, No, I'm not going to read that part. The fourth cause of concern was her serious fainting spells. Tammy felt her equilibrium was affected as well as her stamina. It wasn't unusual to find her in the kitchen on both hands and knees on the counter with her head down. She would say, I'm okay, I'm just a little dizzy. No, he's making that up. I don't believe one bit of that. I think he's making that up. In fact, I'm not even going to read the rest of that, but I will read the bookshelf part, all right? Members of the LDS Church seek to find the ancestors because we believe that if people don't learn about the gospel of Jesus Christ in this life, they will have an opportunity to do so in the spirit world after they die. We believe that we will be able to reunite with our Lord and our loved ones, and that all these families will meet again in heaven. That's why the LDS Church builds beautiful temples across the world, so gospel ordinances can be performed on behalf of our ancestors. Isn't that something? Throughout the 1990s, that was the key focus for us and our extended family members. We completed the temple work for hundreds of ancestors over a period of years. Then later, as we discovered that a woman named Rachel Millar had been overlooked in our records. Several years had passed since the temple work had been done for Rachel's parents and siblings, and we sensed that she was very anxious to join in her family in the paradise. Oh God, all right. I don't know where this is going because I have not read it before. We submitted Rachel's name for temple work, and the family members performed, ordinances in Rachel's behalf so that they could, feel her presence in the temple as if she was watching them, and as if she was watching them take place. This is so strange, guys. So strange. Sorry, it is strange. The unusual part came 2 days later when Rachel appeared to Tammy's grandma, Lucille. Rachel stood at the end of Lucille's bed as a spirit dressed in white, and she told Lucille how grateful she was that she could now join her family in paradise. One interesting fact is the fact that soon after Rachel visited Lucille, we found an actual photo of her taken in the 1800s. Lucille saw the photo and verified that the woman in the photo was the same woman who had appeared to her in her bedroom. Okay. This is why I wrote Chasing Paradise. The main family has the last name of Marlar, and while Lucille plays a key role, as I wrote the novel, it evolved into a full blown adventure that takes place both on Earth and in the spirit world as young women seek to reunite with her family in paradise. Okay, so, and then he goes on to his musical notes again, but I'm just going to skip past that and we're going to go back over here. Now, Chad's letters. Okay, wait a second. Okay. So he talks about this wasn't just about finding a new partner. It was about solidifying a new life with financial gain. We talked about that. The speed of, okay. So number 4, text messages and the zombies. Right. Okay. Here we go. The zombie files. Now let's dive into some of the most disturbing evidence presented at this trial. The text messages police were able to recover, Chad and Lori's phone data, and what they found was truly chilling. 2 weeks before Tammy's death, Lori texts Chad asking, is Viola still hanging around? Okay, so you know is Viola still hanging around Tammy, right? Okay. And Chad's reply is, it's straight out of the horror movie. Yes, she's turned Tammy into a zombie. The only fix is physical death. Do you hear that? This is in their text messages. Now, again, I want to go back and talk about this for a second because I find it very disturbing. Those people around them, Zulema, okay, Melanie Gibb, Melanie Pulaski, all knew this. They were all part of this. They all heard them talk about this. They all knew that these people were dangerous, yet they never said a word to anyone. Why? I want y'all to think about that for a minute. They should have been considered part of the, they should have been considered, they should have been charged as well. They were, they, they they should have been charged. Absolutely, they should have been charged. Every time I think about that, it is so aggravating to know that they just walked away like it was nothing, knowing that Tammy was in danger and that Lori and Chad were planning this, calling her zombies, calling this person zombie, calling that person zombie, and that the only way to get rid of a zombie was what? Physical death. And think about this for a second. Poor baby Tylee. Poor baby Tylee. The only one that was dismembered and thrown away like trash, not protected at all, just into the fire like she was nothing. Chad Daybell did that. Chad Daybell did that because he knew Tylee did not like him. And I don't have all the facts, and I'm probably never going to have all the facts, but I want y'all to think about what makes sense. What makes sense in this whole story by off of what we've heard, Okay? Based on, look at the trial, look at the evidence, look at the text messages, look at all of that. And you tell me, do you agree or disagree? And it's okay if you don't agree with me. That's fine. I'm fine with that too. It's okay to agree to disagree respectfully. But nothing else makes sense as to why she was found that way. Alex and Tylee did not have problems. So why would he do that? He would not do that. That's the point, right? So, then he goes on to say, uh, let that sink in. The only fix is physical death. These weren't just fringe comments, isolated ramblings. These exchanges formed a deeply disturbing part of a rating system, and prosecutors called it light or dark spirits. In their twisted worldview, Tad and Lori labeled real, living people, his own wife, their neighbors, even Lori's children, as possessed or dark. And wouldn't you know it, these dark individuals, these so-called zombies, conveniently cleared the path for the life insurance payouts. And the new relationships and the fulfillment of their apocalyptic fantasies. It's dehumanizing. I'm sorry, dehumanizing ideology designed to justify the unspeakable acts. Absolutely, absolutely. You know? And then you come back over here. I'm not going to read these musical notes. No, thank you, Chad. No, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and go to letter number 5. You know, where he's trying to explain the events of 2019 and like how important it was that he just built a solid foundation of the facts, right? None of these are the facts. Once these facts and my religious beliefs are properly explained, the events of 2019 will finally make sense. No, they don't. They never will, Chad. They never will. Thank you. During my court trial, I was bothered with how simple, just well known beliefs were twisted by the state into sinister, frightening ideas that the state repurposed, claiming these ideas were the catalyst for terrible crimes I did not commit. Really? Okay. Time after time, it was the state who defined what my religious beliefs are, not the witnesses on the stand. As I read through the trial transcripts, it's even more obvious on paper. The state repeatedly made inaccurate test statements in the form of questions, and the witnesses would get into rhythms of saying yes or correct, many times in a row without any hesitation. Right? They weren't listening. They were just saying whatever they were supposed to be. Whatever the state told them to say, that's what they were saying. Wrong. Okay? Wrong. So, this was a distortion of my beliefs, and I think an incomplete picture and a half story of what the witnesses actually heard or saw. And unfortunately, my lawyer failed to fill in those blanks or cross examine. Okay, all right. As soon as I can get my hands on the appeal, I'm going to share it with you guys, right? There's going to be a world of knowledge in that appeal, I guarantee you. All right. So, I felt it's best to begin by sharing with you my near death experiences, which have very significant impacts on my life. There have been 4 times in my life when I eventually died and my spirit has gone into another realm before returning to my body. We know this is not true. He needs to stop telling this. We all were there. I've got the books. Lord, I have studied this man. All right? All right. Oh, God. Here we go. The LDS Church teaches that a human being consists of 2 parts, a spirit body and a physical body. The spirit body resides inside the physical body and gives it life. When we die, the spirit and the body separate from each other. The spirit continues to live and goes into the spirit world while the body ceases to function. For example, picture your spirit as your hand and your body as the glove. The glove is just a covering and it can't move without your hand inside of it. All right? All right? Let's see. A near death experience, or an NDE, is like when the hand is briefly removed from the glove and then put back inside. NDEs can be found in historical records dating back thousands of years among all races, nations, and religions. They have been part of the LDS lore since the church was founded, and NDEs were regularly, just printed in the church newspapers and magazines. Many NDEs indicate, as LDS doctrine confirms, that before we were born, we lived as part of a heavenly family. We were eager for these chances to come to earth and receive a physical body. We understood it would be a challenging experience, but that our time on earth would help us grow emotionally and spiritually. We will all we all helped write our own life plan or blueprint for what we would accomplish during our lives, who we would interact with, and when our life would end. Okay, I see. I see. All right, now we know what happened here. Most NDEs occur when someone dies, but isn't their time to go. They are sent back into their body to complete their life mission. My first near death experience was rather short, but it's a profound effect on me. It was August 1985, and I just turned 17. I was at Flamingo Gorge Reservoir in northern Utah as part of a church youth group that included several of my friends. We started the day by leaping into the reservoir from the cliff edges along the lake shore that were about 20 feet high. That was fun, but then we noticed a 60-foot high cliff that just jetted out over the water. It looked like a natural diving board. We saw someone jump off, and as soon as we were scrambling up the hillside to reach it. Once we got up there and saw how high it truly was, we were intimidated, but we were also stupid teenagers. My friends convinced me that I should jump first. I shook off my nervousness and gazed down at the water. Finally, I just pushed off with my right foot and began my descent. I remember thinking, this is taking a really long time. When I eventually hit the water, it felt like I had slammed into concrete. A shock went through my entire body, and I saw a flash of white light. I felt an audible pop at the base of my skull, and I thought, uh-oh, oh no, I broke my neck. I was so wondered if I'd cut open my forehead because there was a brief searing pain just above my eyes. I quickly realized something even more alarming had happened. My spirit was partly out of my body. The best way to describe this is that the physical body went deeper into the water and than my spirit did. This caused my spirit to pop out through my head, but with my spirit's knees stuck in the skull. In other words, for some reason, I didn't make it all the way out of my body. It was more like three-fourths of the way out. During those first few moments, I was in another dimension. I saw an endless white plain in all directions, and I heard a deep, rich melody that sounded like a synthesizer. As I pondered the music just later, it was very similar to a song called 1984 that opens Van Halen's 1984 album. The song is instrumental and that is just over a minute long, and it definitely has the same uplifting, rich heavenly sound that I heard while I was out of my body. I noticed the pain was gone, and I had initially experienced. There was a soothing warmth just surrounding me, and I saw little pellets of light and energy just rushing toward me from all directions. These pellets were absorbed by my spirit, and I felt wonderful, even euphoric, and it was completely peace. However, my physical body soon started to float toward the surface. My spirit quickly reversed its course through my head and was sucked back into its place. I instantly felt chilled, somewhat paralyzed. I must have taken a while getting to the surface because one of my friends who had been standing on the shore had jumped into the water to rescue me. He grabbed a hold of me and just towed me into the water's edge. All I said to him was, "Something snapped when I hit the surface. I'm done for the day." After I returned home from Flaming George, my entire body was sore for a week. I felt off kilter, like my body and spirit were just disjointed. Sometimes my right eye would just go blind, but if I hit the side of my head with my palm, I could see again. Oh, Lord. Please do not tell me he wants us to believe that. No, I will never believe that. No. Okay. On the other hand, I was spiritually changed. I glimpsed another dimension and I felt like at home. I still lived a normal life, just graduated from Springville High and then completing my freshman year at BYU in Provo. Then during my LDS mission, certain spiritual gifts increased. I was better able to receive promptings and impressions that kept me out of danger. As I mentioned earlier, I have died 4 times. I will describe the second incident in the next letter. It happened while I was on vacation with my family in San Diego, California. I was struck by a large wave at La Jolla Cove and was not completely knocked out, but my body at this time, he wasn't knocked out of his body at this time. He really needed to stay out of the water. Okay, I'm not going to read the bookshelf, all right? I'm going to go here and read this next thing. All right, so we've been on here about 48 minutes, and I was just going to do a short little live because I'm very upset about these, all right? Okay. Now, unsurprisingly, no mention of this bizarre murderous rating system appears in Chad's prison letters. Why would it? It completely shatters his image as a man of God, transforming him into a cold-blooded manipulator using religious dogma to justify murder. The letter is carefully constructed. It's just a facade, and the letters. Okay, these text messages are the crowbar that pries it wide open, revealing the sinister reality underneath. They expose the true motive. the chilling logic that led Tammy's death. Number 5, let's talk about this one for a second. Yes, the light and dark system. It wasn't just a private delusion between Chad and Lori. It permeated Chad's family life. Emma, her own daughter, Emma Daybell's own messages recovered during the investigation showed that the family was actively tracking these bizarre ratings. Imagine being part of a family where your loved ones are assigned a score based on their perceived spiritual alignment, where a negative number could literally mean a death sentence. One screenshot from July 2019, just a few months before Tammy's death, shows Emma asking her father, Dad, what's Tammy's number this week? Listen carefully to what I'm saying, guys. Listen to this. Dad, what's Tammy's number this week? And Chad's chilling answer, a -4. She's getting darker. If you're wondering what a -4 means in their twisted lexicon, the state's expert witness testified that any score below 0 meant that the person was overtaken by evil and could be removed. The word is removed. Before is for murder, right? This wasn't a game. It was a deadly serious belief system that permeated their daily lives. The family was immersed in Chad's apocalyptic ideology, where people could be deemed dark and therefore expendable. This content is absolutely vital to understand the motive behind the entire damning context. He wants us to believe in a simple tragic illness, not a calculated murder, just rooted in dangerous cult-like belief systems. He conveniently omits the very framework that led to his wife being labeled a zombie and ultimately her death. Now, if you remember, Lori Bella says, I never said anybody was a zombie. I don't know anything about zombies. What are you talking about? It's all over the evidence. It's all over the evidence. Give me a break. Number 6. Why release these letters now? That's the question. Why are they releasing them now, right? So why now? Why would Chad Daybell be sitting on death row, suddenly decide about these lengthy, self-serving letters? Criminals on death row rarely write catharsis alone. They are usually ulterior motives at play. And in Chad's case, legal analysts point out to 2 primary reasons. First, his defense attorney likely sees this note as a preview of an appeal narrative. This is a clear strategy. Blame the coroner for faulty findings, paint Tammy as too proud or too stubborn to see a doctor for her respiratory infections, and ultimately try to seed enough reasonable doubt to overturn his conviction. But there's a critical point. Appellate courts don't retry facts. They don't re-examine evidence in the same way a trial court does. Their focus is on procedural errors. Did the lower court make a mistake in applying the law? Was there a violation of Chad's rights? You know, just re-arguing the cause of death without significant new expert testimony, it's a long shot, a Hail Mary. It's a Hail Mary pass that rarely succeeds. It's a difficult path, especially when the overwhelming evidence is already presented. This is not going to work. The second, okay, and perhaps more immediate motive for this publicity, Chad Daybell has just Chad Daybell has a fervent base of online supporters who amplify every post, every claim, every perceived injustice. This letter provides fresh fodder for their campaigns, turning private claims into public pressure. We've seen this tactic with other high-profile convicts. Gener- they generate enough noise, enough controversy, and perhaps you can influence the public opinion or even sway a future legal proceeding in some subtle way. The risk for Chad, however, is significant. Prosecutors can and likely will use any inconsistencies in these letters against him in future hearings. If he ever testifies again and contradicts what he has written here, then the letter becomes a powerful impeachment. It's just ammunition for further solidifying his lack of credibility, and it's a gamble, and one that could easily backfire. Absolutely. Okay? Here's the next one. It's just a common counter argument. Just debunk them. Chad's supporters, indeed, the letter itself, try to raise various counter arguments to cast doubt on the autopsy and the prosecution's case. Let's debunk a few of those most common ones because they simply don't hold up under scrutiny. Claim number 1, the autopsy. Okay. The autopsy was delayed, so evidence could be corrupted. This is a frequent defense tactic, but in Tammy's case, it's simply false. In fact, decomposition actually makes the petrichy more visible, not less. The forensic pathologist photographs these telltale signs, providing clear and undeniable visual evidence. The delay didn't obscure the truth, it allowed it to be meticulously documented. Boom! Sorry, Chad. Number two. Tammy had COVID like symptoms. This claim attempts to leverage public familiarity with respiratory illness. However, toxicology reports found that no influenza, no RSV, and absolutely no COVID in Tammy's system. Her symptoms, as described by Chad, were just generalized and could easily be feigned or exaggerated to create a false narrative of illness. Claim number three, asphyxiation could be from asthma. This is another attempt to link her death to natural respiratory conditions. But let's be clear, asthma constricts the bronchitis, the tiny air passages in the lungs, making it hard to breathe. It does not obstruct the airway itself, and it certainly does not leave the kind of bruising patterns on the neck or the internal injuries consistent with strangulation. They are fundamentally different, just fundamentally different psychological events. So, claim number four. You see, Chad, you're not going to get away with this. None of this is going to work. You're not going. This is not going to get you a new trial. It's not going to get you off death row. And Lori needs to stop thinking that y'all are just going to walk out of prison one day and be together. It's not going to happen. Understand that now. All right. Claim number four. Ted passed a polygraph. So a lot of people pass polygraphs, but they're really still lying, okay? It's easily done by some people. This one is perhaps the most deciduous polygraphs or lie detectors tests were ruled unreliable decades ago and were never admitted as evidence in trial. They are not a scientific measure of truth. They measure physiological responses that can be manipulated or misinterpreted. To bring up a polygraph is to grasp at straws, attempting to introduce something that holds no legal or scientific weight. All right? What did the jury weigh? What the jury weighed on? The jury didn't just read the autopsy report and take this prosecution's word for it. They heard and saw a mountain of evidence that painted a comprehensive, damning picture of Chad Daybell. They saw Google searches performed just 2 days before Tammy died. How to break a neck. And what drugs cause a heart attack. These aren't the search history of a concerned husband. They're just the queries of a man researching methods of murder. Hello. They heard testimony from Tammy's life insurance agent, who confirmed that Chad had upped Tammy's policy to a staggering $430,000 just 4 months prior to her death, making him the sole beneficiary. This massive financial incentive, a motive as old as crime itself. And then there was the surveillance video, cold and undeniable, showing Chad buying children's bikes with Lori Vallow just days after Tammy's funeral. A grotesque display of callousness and a clear indicator that his mind was already on his next chapter, not grieving his recently deceased wife. Chad's letters in self-serving narrative is a self-serving narrative, never acknowledges these crucial data points. Not the Google searches, not the insurance policy, not the video. Instead, he leans heavily on emotional, just saccharine languages, calling Tammy my soulmate, the love of my life. This is rhetorical, just more psychologists often call this virtue signaling, a common tactic in narcissistic documentation where the author attempts to portray themselves as morally upright or deeply feeling despite their actions. It's a calculated attempt to manipulate emotions to distract from the brutal facts. Hello. Number nine, let's talk about this one, viewer CTA. So after considering all of this, what do you think? Does Chad's letters raise genuine medical questions that deserve reconsideration? Or is this merely just last minute damage control? A desperate attempt to rewrite a narrative that's already been definitively written by a jury. Drop your take in the comments below. And if you want a deeper dive into these, chilling phone records, hit that subscribe. I'm posting a follow-up next week. Yes, we are going to talk about this again. And we're going to talk about these records from the phone calls. All of these things told the whole story. I'm sure they never realized that these things would be put out to the public, did they? I don't think they ever realized that. But anyway, now, Section 10, here's our final summary on what happened here. and why I find these just disturbing. And I really wish that they would not put any more out, but we can't control what Chad Daybell does. Chad Daybell is going to continue doing whatever he wants to do. And Emma is going to continue to be his puppet because she's brainwashed by her father, right? The cult continues on. That's what I'm going to say. Chad Daybell's handwritten notes ask us to ignore the coroner, to dismiss the potential hemorrhages, to forget the sudden, massive life insurance policy, and to believe that a simple cough is enough to kill a healthy 49-year-old woman. The state, though its exhaustive investigation and compelling trial, says that not just unlikely, it's a fantasy. And 12 jurors, after weighing every piece of the evidence, every testimony, every chilling detail, unequivocally agreed. Until an appeals court says otherwise, and that's very a high bar to clear, it's not going to happen, the official record stands. Tammy Daybell died a homicide, brutally strangled by her home in her home while her husband was already planning his next chapter with Lori Ballow. The letters changed none of that. It only serves just as a stark, unsettling reminder that even on death row, even while confronted with undesirable truths, the storytelling, the desperate attempts to control the narrative continues. That's right. He continues to try to control the narrative. Anyway, good to see you. I hope you can listen to this whenever you get a chance. Yes, I know we all kind of get busy during the day. I didn't even really put much out. I just, hey, I want to jump on. I want to talk about Chad Daybell's letters and how disgusting they are and what he thinks he's doing. And you know what it really proves? It really proves that he is absolutely the mentally disturbed, narcissistic sociopath that we all thought he was already. You cannot deny it, right? And the cult just keeps on going by the very people who should have protected their mother and they did not. Anyway, you all have a great day. I'll check you next time. Bye guys. See you later. Bye.